It's never easy to say whether we are doing enough because generally in the corporate sector, and the ecosystem around the corporate sector, the human resources that go into the leadership and management, you have some of the finest leaders and managers that exist in modern society. They may not be out there all the time, but they constantly are striving to do better and for excellence. And excellence is very elusive when you're dealing with issues of great complexity and limited resources. And it is not for nothing that India is respected in the world for its business and leadership acumen. And our leaders are recognized in other parts of the world, and not sufficiently in India because of various reasons. One of them is because of the managing an environment. At the same time, the kind of innovations that we are seeing today, my organization has been in India since 1969. The kind of engagement and the kind of innovations we are seeing and the ability to rise above our immediate business requirements is something I'd like to talk about. It is not for nothing that Edgar mentions that the India chapter of the IB, our own corporate initiative on Indian biodiversity by business, collected and convened through the CII, is itself a leader in its own way. And the kind of work, the thinking, the curriculum that has gone behind it is of great value. And in this, I believe that in the next 4 to 5 years, you will see leadership, you will see projects, you will see initiatives that are perhaps ahead of anything, at least in our region, that we could create a lot of following and ability of people to understand this subject. And I'll go into the philosophy of it a little bit later. Basically, there are I would mention 5 important aspects that we are seeing the trending as far as industry is concerned. The first is stewardship. Stewardship on water, stewardship on issues such as river basins, the understanding of sub-river basins, the understanding of where this flow is going to come from. Because very importantly, water is one major limit to the growth of India. It's the limit for our economic and financial well-being. It is the most important aspect as far as we are concerned. And we are seeing the understanding through various initiatives within this group and beyond, and in other areas of stewardship, where understanding both of theory and practice is going ahead of what we have seen in the last 50 years. Number 2, the ability to look at solutions for improving the overall aspect of climate change through innovations that are either renewable or in terms of retrofitting what we have already, and is showing in the investment in the future how things could be better. And here a lot of innovations take place, and this is something that a lot of you might be interested in through both the aegis of the CII and also organizations who are sitting here, including my own. The third aspect is in agro industry. Firstly, with regard to forests and growing agroforests, and the number of species that have recently been added from 4 to 23, I think now, of trees that can be grown in agricultural areas, which is going to increase, I understand. At the same time, providing the diversity that is required for retention of water and prevention of soil erosion. So, trying to turn the cycle a little bit on the environment as far as the green revolution is concerned, this is something that is going to have major impacts in the next 20 years if it is taken seriously. The other aspect of this is, of course, that industry is also driving to some extent its consumers to be more responsible, and the consumers are in turn driving the industry to do so too. For instance, there is an initiative undertaken called the Better Cotton Initiative, which actually looks at the growing of cotton with less use of pesticide chemicals in water, and having the fiber processed in a particular way so that the clothes that we wear are both better for us as well as for the environment. And at this point of time, the pricing of these particular products is more or less the same as the others, because people are not driving the pricing so much, but over a period of time, even this differentiation is going to take place. The other aspect is with regard to certification entirely. There's certification on forests, Forest Stewardship Council. There's certification on marine products. This, by the way, I know that we are sitting far away from the ocean in India, but a very large number of people are employed by the fishery sector and depend on the environment because most of the fish is wild caught, and depends on the sector to be able to, and depends on the environment to be sustainable in order to continue their livelihood. So through the certification of something called the Marine Stewardship Council, of which there's only one certification in India at this point of time, in a lagoon called Ashtmudi in Kerala. And if we could replicate that all along the coast in Karnataka as well as Maharashtra and Gujarat, and on the eastern seaboard, it would make a huge difference to species and to communities. And by this certification, by the way, the price realization for exports is something close to 25 to 30% more. So it's a situation that's worth exploring for industry. We are also seeing, by the way, I need to interrupt this thing. I must say that when Mr. Mukundan was introducing us, it's little unfair on him because nobody introduces the introducer. And, since he said that, we must also have fun sitting here, and now that I have the mic, he doesn't have a chance, so I've got to embarrass him a little bit. Now, the thing is, Mr. Mukundan comes from a large conglomerate, member of one of the largest business groups in India. But I have worked with him on this particular forum for some time through the IBBI and also through interactions with CII. And I've seen his, although I must say it in a very different, I've seen his learning curve go up to, in such a way that this is a case study by itself. And not just the responsibility with which the company that he represents looked at with regard to the environment, but also with regard to how much he's been able to influence the people who are sitting around him. And this is an example that we must all take. Not just him, but I'm sure there are many of you in this group who would like the same. And this is something I take back to my other aspect with regard to philosophy. I'll come to one or two other examples as well. And this is that, in a larger sense, in the evolution of the earth, we are currently in an age or era called the Anthropocene, where the human intervention drives the way the earth is behaving today. And there are a lot of books there, and there's a lot of material which you can read, and I can also give you reading material on this. But basically in this Anthropocene, we've gone through an area where we influence the earth with regard to agricultural practices, then the industrial revolution, and as we move forward to the information technology and digital revolution, we hope, and some of us hope, that the next evolution that we will see will be an ecological one. And basically the ability of those who are in positions of understanding, especially in the sector of business and corporates, to see and understand that we need to be better characters in the way we behave with the environment. And this behavior that influences the way we think and behave and act towards the earth. The earth, by the way, I mean, this is just my personal way of thinking, so you don't have to believe this, it's not theory, actually expresses itself through the actions of humanity at this point of time. Even if we are over-exploiting it or we are trying to take care of this. And I believe that in this evolution of people, when people are actually trying to, when they understand the reasons behind their, the work they're doing, the businesses they are in, will evolve to a better stage. And that stage is one which is led by several initiatives across the world. And it's for that reason that you see the evolution of the sustainability development goals. And here the majority of the goals are for the betterment of the earth. So this is the message that we have. And therefore, the initiatives such as this that we are following, the Sustainability Summit, the IBBI, the others that you do in your other initiatives and lives, is actually a reflection of this particular cycle. And this is what I believe. Because from the way we see the development of a number of areas and sectors in India, it would make us very pessimistic if we were to see that on a day-to-day basis. But when we see the kind of interventions that we've heard on the wetlands in Bharatpur, or the work that's happening on the Western Ghats, which I hope we will talk about, and the kind of things that Suman spoke about in this area, these are very important aspects. And in the next 15 to 20 years, I understand that you will see much more of it and hopefully much more intervention. I would just like to end by saying 2 points. One is that in whatever we do, please, in India, when we sit in a fora like this, whatever we do in this area has a huge impact on the region that we are a part of. And not just the SAARC region, but even beyond. A lot of our legislations, our initiatives, the documentation that will come out of this is read very carefully in other parts of the world. Not just in Southeast Asia, but also parts of Europe and Africa, and especially Africa. So we have a responsibility towards all this, that if you and your company or your corporate or your group of people are doing something for a wetland or a coastline or a forest or a river, those actions may well be copied and complied in similar ways in other countries. And I know that this is so because in international fora, we are constantly asked and challenged for these kind of things. The second thing I would say is that, or the last thing I would say is, water is an important aspect, yes. But remember, we are about 20 basins in India, river basins, yeah. Major and medium. Out of the 20 basins, 14 are stressed. And not stressed only because of water, but also all these ecosystems that go into this. And in a period of 15 years' time, we can turn this around. This is the period of time it took, for instance, I'm just giving a figure, for the Rhine to resuscitate itself after the Second World War. For the Danube to understand, people to understand and start working towards cleaning it up. It may seem to be a long time, but 15 years of work would change the way the Jamna looks today. And in all this, business has a major responsibility because it is not just the responsibility of government to do everything. And these interactions and the interplays are something that we are beginning to see more of in the interventions of the businesses, that many of them are in this room and many of them are without. Thank you.